Hello everyone and welcome to KeyBound. Today we are going to talk about the Neo65 again. Alright, and here's the reason why. When I first did a review on the Neo65, I didn't really like the keyboard, and a lot of you guys did. And because of that, a lot of you guys disagreed with my thoughts on the Neo65, and so I decided I will take another look at it, as I promised in the comments. And yeah, that's what we're just going to be doing today. So as you guys all know, the Neo65 is a 65% keyboard for only $120. Now that's, spec'd out with the things that you want. It's a really good price. It's one piece aluminum case, copper external weight, at least that's what I chose. It has a tri-mode PCB with no flex cuts, and I decided to go with a palm plate for this specific build. Now, before we get any further, I do want to talk about the sponsor of this channel today. It is from KeyTalk. Now, these guys basically create keycaps and artisan keycaps, and they sent me over this Camp Life keycap set, which I really liked. It is a KDA profile keycap set, die sub PBT, but I like it because these are, the PBT is relatively thick. I like thick PBT keycaps. I really don't like the low quality thin PBT keycaps. I feel like they're just not very good. So definitely check out KeyTalk. They're inexpensive and pretty good quality for keycaps. It's not like a GMK set, which is super high quality ABS keycaps. But I think if you're looking for something, one, budget friendly, that looks good and that feels good to type on, KeyTalk is the way to go. So again, thank you very much KeyTalk for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to it. Okay, so the first thing that we wanted to try today was the gummy O-ring mount. Now, if you guys remember, I said I couldn't use the gummy O-ring because I couldn't push it in enough. Now, someone in the comments did specifically say, hey, why don't you try your build without any foam? The gummy O-ring mount should work. And I was like, you know what? Okay, so we'll do that. We're using a complete foamless build. So the no case foam, no PE foam, no plate foam, right? Now, the switches that we're using today are the MMD Princess Linears V2. Now, I really like these switches. They have an LY stem for the smoothness. I've been really into LY stems. I feel like there's a good typing feel with them, and they're really smooth. They have a PA66 bottom and a modified polycarbonate top. They sound pretty nice, and they're slightly clacky, but what I like is that there's some nice low end to it. So if you're into that, like clack thock, these are really good switches. Now, putting this together and with the palm plate, I've never really used palm before. Now, the only other time I used palm was with my wife's Mode Envoy. That is also a palm plate, and that came out really nice. I like the sound of it. So trying it here, especially with the no foam, was really interesting. And yeah, with the no foams, the O-ring gummy mount was able to fit on easier, and I was able to squeeze it into the keyboard a lot easier. There wasn't, this weird, foam popping out and things like that. Typing experience was interesting. I really like the tone of the keyboard, especially with no foam. So a lot of you who basically said, hey, why don't you try a full clack build? It sounds really great. You're right. I think it sounds really good. The alpha keys sound really good. The one thing I didn't like though was that they were muted. The sound was muted around the edges, right? So I think maybe as a way the gummy O-ring mount kind of like interacts with the keyboard and kind of closes off all the edges. It was really muted, and I wasn't really a fan of that because I really liked how all the alpha keys sounded, but the surrounding keys, I don't know, it just wasn't the best. Here it is. Here's what it sounds like. And yeah, as I said, I really like the tone of this one, especially with that palm plate. But again, the sound along the edges seems to suffer a little bit. I think if I was going to do this over again, I would probably do just the little gasket beans rather than the full-on gummy O-ring mount. Now, another build I wanted to try was actually the full plateless build. Now, I've never done a plateless build before, and I think it would kind of turn out pretty interesting. Now, after kind of taking off everything and then putting all the switches back on, the keycaps on, this is kind of weird, and I feel like plateless is more, I don't know, I feel like Neo65 offering this as an option, especially if you're gonna do hot swap, it's not really an option, if that makes sense. I feel like plateless works way better if you're soldering in your switches. I just think that there's just not enough stability without a plate there, and you can feel a lot of wobble in the switches when you're typing, and there's just, I don't know, the stability is just not there, and I find myself not really typing as I normally do with this plateless build. And so yeah, I think again, if you're doing a soldered PCB, plateless I think is definitely an option, but then of course you can't switch it out if you don't like it. But with hot swap, it's just a little too unstable for me. But anyways, let's check out what this sounds like. And so yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but there's definitely some weird, I don't know, some weird wobbliness, and also I think the instability of the switches itself is lending itself to this weird tone that's happening. Whenever you click on it, you can actually kind of hear the switch kind of wobbling in its spot, and that, I don't know, I'm not a super big fan of this plateless. I think, again, it is a really cool idea that, you know, they offered this option, but I think just if you're doing hot swap Neo65, probably don't go plateless. I don't think it's really worth it. It is nice that it is pretty resonant though, so you know the tone is not bad, but I think it could be better. So yeah, anyways, final thoughts on the keyboard. I like it more this time around. I think it is much better than when I initially built it, and I think a lot of it was just kind of due that I was a bit rushed with my first build. It was actually a Christmas present for one of my nephews, and you know I had to get it out really quickly, and so I really just focused on that build. But then kind of messing around with this one a little bit more, I can kind of see where a lot of you guys are coming from. I think it's got some decent tone, although I wish it was a little bit more consistent across the entire board. And I do like the fact that it has multiple mounting styles and multiple plate options, including plateless. I think that is pretty cool. I think it's actually really good for clacky builds. I don't know if thocky builds is going to be quite as good, but I think there's some room for experimentation there. I really like the tone of the no foam. I think I would still probably stick with the gasket beans and the plate foam as I normally do. That's kind of my go-to. But with the palm plate and no other case foam or PE foam, I think it sounds pretty good. I'm actually, you know, pretty enjoying it. I have to say though, I still don't like the building experience. I find it to just be, not as smooth all the way through, if that makes sense. I still don't like the ribbon cable. I think they need to get rid of that in future iterations. I don't know. I'm just kind of annoyed at how that process works. I find myself bending the ribbon cable, folding it, squishing it by accident. I just don't like the method of putting it in. I don't know. That's just me. I just don't like the ribbon cable. I think it kind of ruins the building experience. And I think the design and engineering could use some work a little bit more. I don't know. I don't like needing to be able to remove the external weight or backplate just in order to get the keyboard out. I think that, I don't know, that kind of makes me not want to try a different build or rebuild it, if that makes sense, just because it's kind of annoying and difficult. You know, if like comparatively to like the Neo65, where it's just 6 screws, you go for the top, you take the cable out, right? You don't have to deal with like backplate or, you know, the batteries falling out and things like that, because, you know, in order to get the board out, you have to, you know, take the batteries, and then there's, you know, 2 thumb holes that you can kind of push the board out. I don't know. That's just me personally. I think that stuff can use some work. But yeah, anyways, I can honestly still very much recommend this board. I think it's a great beginner board, even with my minor complaints about it. For the price as well, for $120 before shipping, I think it's fantastic and a really good entry level into the building keyboard hobby. That being said, I still personally don't really like it. I think I would rather spend just a little bit more money for a better building experience and better tone overall. I do like all the options that you get with this board, but it's really just not for me. It's not really for me. For me, I think the Neo65 is still just a better board. Yes, it is like $60 more, but I think it's just a better board overall, and I think it's worth that extra $60. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Hope you guys enjoyed the re-review, I guess. And yeah, I'll see you guys all in the next one.